This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Sahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 397 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Wotzko, and today we will talk about Borussia Dortmund's 2-0 win against 1. FC Köln, a 3-1 loss against Ajax in the Champions League with some controversy, and we will preview Saturday's clash against RB Leipzig. For that and more, joins me once again Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, how are you doing? It's good to have you back.
I am doing all right. I have no idea what controversy you're talking about, so we'll just have to see what happens.
Right. Yeah, I'm doing well myself. Thanks for asking. A little bit stressed, so I'm not the most prepared this time, I must admit, right off the bat. But let's be honest. I wasn't too prepared when I made my predictions for the Cologne game either, because big old naysayer Stefan Butzko, I think I predicted a 3-3 draw or something like that. And what happened was it was the first clean sheet of the season, and yay. But honestly, though, I think I couldn't be happier with this 2-0 win. And I think I'm right with the prediction so far that Cologne actually was the better team over, 70 minutes or so. Cologne, I think in the last 10, 15 minutes, they did run out of steam. But it was not an easy game for Dortmund at all, and I think that was there to predict. Now, what obviously is something you can't really predict is whether Dortmund will win against the run of play, which they seldomly do, but this time they did, and I'm really so happy for it, just because all the injuries and then all the circumstances that Dortmund have to deal with, getting this result is really nice, and it kind of feels a bit like poetic justice to me that last season it was sort of the other way around. The shoe was on the other foot, where Cologne were the worst team and somehow snuck away with a 2-1 win or so. And this time Dortmund did them dirty. So for that I'm very grateful, and it's just one of those losses that just feels so great to me, at least. It's very personal, because in my expectation, Dortmund were not going to get away with all 3 points there. And even a clean sheet, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously predicted Dortmund to win correctly. I did not predict a clean sheet. I think we both were like, it's going to be 6 goals and a ton of goals and goals and nada. I will slightly disagree with you in that I don't think Köln were the better side. I do believe they would have deserved a draw. I don't think Köln did enough to win.
Well,
and the reason
you disagree with me and the coach, then that's fine.
That's fine. Sometimes you got to say what you got to say, especially when Baumi is right there and looking at you in the press conference with his flat cap. But I mean, all joking aside, I really like Steffen Baumgart, and I like the football that they played. And Dortmund, I feel like were very clever on the day.
Yeah,
they kind of, like you said, they reversed the situation. They let Köln be the aggressor. But
hold up,
but
because Dortmund did have those 2 minutes of counter pressing. And then, according to Rose, Hazard ran out of steam.
But the thing that Marco Rose and Baumi both said was Köln may have shot a lot. In fact, Köln shot 20 times versus Dortmund's 8 times. But Dortmund and Köln had the same amount of shots on target. So they shot a lot, but they didn't really create a ton of quality chances. In fact, from an XG standpoint, Dortmund had 1.3, Köln had 1.4. And again, Köln took 20 shots to get to 1.4, and Dortmund took 8 shots to get to 1.3. So that, to me, that's kind of like when optically optically, yes, Köln were the more dominant side. But if you don't do anything with it, and how often have we had that with Dortmund, like you said? I mean, think of, like an Augsburg game or Köln last season, where optically you are the better side. You've got more possession, you're winning in the right parts of the pitch, you're taking a lot of shots, but really memorable goal-scoring chances are few and far between. And then the question is, well, did you do enough to deserve to win? And obviously they didn't. I mean, Steffen Baumgart said, yeah, we were good in all statistics except for the one that actually matters, which is goals, and it really doesn't help you if you have a lot of shots, a lot of possession, you don't score goals. And that's a lesson that Dortmund have learned over the years. And I'm pleased from the standpoint of Dortmund won a difficult game during a very difficult start to the season, which is crazy to say, given that they're only 1 point behind Bayern in second place. But it's really difficult, and it's only going to get more difficult as we talk about yet another fullback injury after the Ajax match. Which actually
it's such a downer now, especially when we talk about the Cologne game, because Marius Wolf was fantastic against Cologne.
And it seems like he picked up the knock that knocked him out of the Ajax game already in Köln, but Marco Rose doesn't have the options to rotate too much right now.
No, and I think the Ajax game with Felix Passlack on really showed that he's not that big of an option, and I mean, who would have thought that Marius Wolf was going to play left wing back or left fullback for Dortmund and actually do a good job? I remember me sitting here at the start of the season saying that I would personally prefer if we get rid of Marius Wolf, but in the same breath, I think I uttered that Dortmund will need Marius Wolf because I've predicted an injury malaise. I think that was not hard to predict considering the schedules of European tournaments and South American tournaments and all that kind of stuff, that footballers in general will be stretched very thin. And Dortmund do, historically, I feel like, have a lot of problems with muscular injuries. So why would this be any different? And if the circumstances are as they are, I feel like we're going to have to deal more with that. And we've been hit very hard. And Marius Wolf going down is sort of, it's terrible because it feels like the last column that gave you stability on the fullback position is now gone down too, and it's sad because in the context of the Cologne game, you just want to rave about Marius Wolf and his effort and how he is giving Dortmund so much stability, and even then on top of it, He makes breakthrough runs, and it should have been a nice assist for him, but Marco Reus for some reason whiffed or maybe got deflected. I'm not entirely sure, but it was an amazing effort by Wolf to break down breakthrough rather on the left side and feed the ball into Reus. That was I've heard people call it a world-class move. I don't know about that, but it was darn good. And now that we have to sit here and, talk about this injury, I think today was said that he will return sometime in November, but I guess it's more toward the end of November. And also, can you ever be really sure with what Dortmund predict in terms of muscle injury ETAs? I'm not entirely sure either about that. But nevertheless, kudos to Marius Wolf to, playing the way he played to that point and helping Dortmund secure another 3 points. And people who follow me on Twitter will probably have seen the chart I posted. But nevertheless, after 10 match days, I took the liberty and looked at the same fixtures Dortmund have played so far and compared them with last season. Because I kind of felt like Dortmund are getting a lot of points in games that they didn't do so last season, and that's exactly true because Dortmund right now have 24 points after 10 match days. Just so you know, last season after 10 match days they had 19 points, so already a 5 point plus. But I think what's more interesting is that Frankfurt at home, Dortmund had 3 points this season, obviously, and 0 points last season. Freiburg away, both were goose eggs. And then Hoffenheim, 1 point last season, 3 points this season. Leverkusen away, 0 points last season, 3 points this season. Union at home, both times 3 points. Gladbach away, both times 0 points. And then Augsburg at home, both times 3. Mainz last season at home, 1 point because that was a draw, and 3 points this season. And Bielefeld away, also 3 points twice. And then, of course, the latest difference makers, Cologne at home, where we lost last season and won this season. And this amounts to a difference of 13 points in these particular fixtures, because last season Dortmund got from the exact schedule that they played right now 11 points. So I know we're sitting here often and talking about Dortmund having to improve in general, and how their pressing will improve and how this and that and everything will improve. But obviously we are also sitting often here and bitch about games where they should have gotten a result but didn't. And especially those games that I just listed through last season, I feel like there were a lot of games where Dortmund absolutely should have gotten a point or 3 or whatnot and did not. And so they're doing this season at least for this particular list of fixtures. And Matthias, let me just tell you how relieved I am that they're doing that. I don't know where this will all lead to. Maybe they will still now collapse in the finishing stretches of the Hinrunde. I don't know. But having these 24 points is worth a lot right now, because I think we have now a 9-point gap on Leipzig, right? And it just feels really good to at least for now have the feeling that at least Champions League qualification is safe.
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about that these are the types of fixtures that if you want to win titles, you have to win.
Right.
And over the last couple of seasons, these are exactly the fixtures where Dortmund would stumble. Bayern matches are one thing, but Köln, Augsburg, Hoffenheim, those are really the difference makers. Those are the ones that Bayern coast through, and that at the end usually make up the difference to whoever it is that is trailing them. And over the last 10 years, more often than not, it's been Borussia Dortmund. And I don't know, like you said, where this is going to lead to at the end of the season, because the rest of the Hinrunde is going to be damn hard, simply because of all the injuries. And there's a shortened winter break because of some crappy tournament that's happening next year. And, it's a truncated season with more matches to play. And that does not favor teams like Dortmund. However, somehow they're getting through. And that's really how we need to look at this. And that's the one thing I always poke fun at Borussia Dortmund fandom on Twitter, because it's Twitter and it's not a real place. But that reactionary aspect to games, it's like, these are the games that Dortmund over the last years has usually lost. And when it comes to muscle injuries, that is an unfortunate side effect of playing a more aggressive style of football. As they do under Marco Rose, Jürgen Klopp sides are, whether it was at Dortmund or even at Liverpool, are famous for muscular injuries at times. It's something that kind of comes with the territory. The question, of course, then comes down to squad depth and so on. And it's really unfortunate when it hits an entire subsection of your squad, i.e. fullbacks, all of them, except Felix Passlack, who doesn't count. And that's the issue, because you look at the next match, okay, you put Torgan Hazard at left back or left wing back. Okay, good. Thomas Meunier at right wing back. But all these players, you are asking them to basically have to play 90 minutes, because who's your backup that you trust enough to go out there and work? Now, granted, Hummels is well rested now for the Leipzig game. But Marco Rose talked about it post-Ajax. He said, the problem we have isn't just injuries and all that, but then you have to play 60 minutes against an Ajax side with one man less, which means you have to run more and work more. And that essentially attributed to the Marius Wolf injury. I think if they would have played with 11 and maybe taken a 1 or 2 goal lead, which was on the cards at that time, then they would have subbed Marius Wolf off after a while because he was carrying a knock. But as things were, they couldn't. And he had to work harder, and bam, there you have the injury. That's unfortunately how these things then happen. I don't necessarily put the blame on the coach or the medical staff. I'm not a doctor or a physical therapist. I do know when you play a more intense style that this tends to happen more. But what's the alternative? You don't. You play a more chill style. People won't have that either. So you're kind of caught in a very difficult situation right now with Dortmund. And that being said, again, they're only a point behind Bayern. And, when you look at the 2 games that they lost, Freiburg are really good this year again. So that makes that a little bit more okay. You can almost excuse losing to Freiburg. The Gladbach game, that was just a bad day at the office, and compounded by a ridiculous red card that probably also shouldn't have been given in that situation. So, I heard somebody, I forget who it was on the commentary. I'm not going to go into it because I do know who it was on the commentary team, who then, picked at that Gladbach loss, but completely ignored the red card. And you can't ignore that situation. And so, like you, I'm very happy Dortmund won this match. I'm very happy that Köln played the way they did. I think they're on a fantastic road right now with Steffen Baumgart. And I wish them the best of luck. I like 1. FC Köln. I really hope Köln become a force in the Bundesliga to challenge for international places on a consistent basis. And I like Steffen Baumgart. But this was huge for Dortmund in that they didn't collapse and they withstood and they triumphed in the end. And I would say not unjustly so, given that they've also lost the exact same type of match before.
Yeah, so before we move on to the Ajax game, let's just celebrate the way Dortmund scored those 2 goals against Cologne, because the first one was a long ball by Akanji to Julian Brandt, so I guess it was sent with a prayer. But Cologne center backs, for whatever reason, did not manage to cover that off, which probably would have been rather easy, but I think the little flick with the side of his head that Julian Brandt did to Jude Bellingham was really smart. And then what Jude Bellingham does with the, is it a chip, is it a lob, sort of cross into the box to Hazard is obviously genius. Yet again, this assist was huge. And Hazard maybe could have hit it better. I think Sebastian Kehl did say that he caught a little bit with the shoulder too, but the fact that Dortmund even scored 2 headers in this game is quite amazing. So that's obviously a fantastic goal. Also really glad for Hazard because it was in the 40th minute and Dortmund did not have that many things going for them. And once again, I think Daniel Malen didn't start. So Hazard was sort of, your main source of shooting next to Royce and I guess Julian Brandt. So the fact that he is in the right position at the right time is encouraging. Sadly, our stopgap striker is needed to play stopgap fullback or wingback these days. So it's just funny how screwed up this all is. But that was obviously really great. And then I think Malen and Tigges replaced Pongracic and Hazard in the 58th minute. And Dortmund reverting to a back 4 actually helped Dortmund in this game. I thought afterwards they played a little bit better. And of course, when they won the corner, which I think was just like a poor giveaway from Cologne, that felt a bit unnecessary. But oftentimes that's exactly the kind of corner you get punished for. And then the fact that Steffen Tigges made that first post run and just flicked it into the back of the net, obviously a dream goal for a player like Steffen Tigges. I think Twitter user and Yellowwallpod listener, talked that they had to think of you when he scored because of what you said about Tigges on the last episode. So I'll leave this one to you to discuss this goal since I've already did the 1-0.
Well, I mean, it was a corner to the near post that he flicked in. That's kind of the standard type of goal you would want in a situation like that when you've got a big body up there. Köln helped him along because I forget who they put against him in a marking situation, but he was damn near a head shorter. And that's just not smart.
It's okay. Others can commit sad pieces too, Matthias.
No, absolutely. I mean, it definitely helped. He also got blocked off on his run. Listen, my opinion on Stefan Tigges doesn't change. No. He's a second Bundesliga striker at best. He's a 23-year-old playing in the under 23s. Okay? That doesn't change. I'm really happy for the kid to score a goal for Borussia Dortmund in the Bundesliga. Undoubtedly so. I wish him all the best of luck. But that just doesn't change my opinion on him as a player.
Why would it?
He seems like a really nice kid. Works really, really hard. And this is a dream come true, a dream that most of us Dortmund fans growing up in the region wished we could have fulfilled in our lives. Okay. And that's just a fantastic story. But he also killed quite a few counterattacks because he just walked into the offside and wouldn't move out of it. And so the players that were with him had to hold up the ball, and that killed the entire momentum in the second half when Köln were pushing for an equalizer. So that, it is what it is. A Dortmund win. I like his work rate. I think he's got a great work rate. It's good that he scored. I thought Brandt was pretty good on the day. Daniel Mal didn't play because, as Marco Rose put it in the press conference, he had Flitzer, which, if you don't speak German, that means you had the runs. And if anybody has had the runs, the last thing you want to do is play a competitive football match. Because
at least someone don't play in white shorts.
Yeah. So, and that would probably also explain why he didn't come on straight away against Ajax and played later in the game. Because it's a rough thing to kind of come back from, dehydration, all that stuff. So, very happy for Stefan Tigges. I'm looking forward to Erling Haaland coming back.
Yeah, which I think his father said today is probably not going to happen before Christmas. So, don't hold your breath.
Yeah, he said something like it would be a Christmas present if he gets a game or two in before the winter break.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, obviously, because boy, would I like to have him for the next game against Leipzig or the game against Bayern, because Haaland is always there, always good for a goal or two or three against those teams. So, it's really sad to have to make do right now without him, and I think now is a good time to actually transition over to the game against Ajax. And, obviously Dortmund did start with Tigges yet again, as you just further alluded to, because Marlon was probably still not 100% to start. But nevertheless, I thought that the first 27 minutes or so, I'm not exactly sure which minute it was, but I thought that it was a good game to watch. There were two good teams on the football field, and Dortmund slightly were the better team without Ajax being not dangerous or anything, because Ajax did have a couple of dicey moments too, and you could see whenever they had the ball, they knew how to shift it and move it quite well. I think Ajax missed out a couple switches of play to open up Dortmund a little better, which they did quite well in that first outing. But this time Dortmund were also more confident in possession. Maybe that's because they're playing at home. I don't know exactly what the factors are, but I'm sure there were adjustments made. I think they quite readily used that other game to look at what they are doing wrong. And so there were some adjustments that Dortmund did, which weren't major, but, ball distribution was better. Jude Bellingham, Witzel and Brandt, I thought, had a really good partnership going in midfield. And I thought our centre-backs did a quite good job with Hummels, Akanji, and Pongracic to move the ball out and to not be caught so easily by Ajax's pressing. So I think the beginning of the game before that infamous red card was really encouraging, and I was really just enjoying watching a Champions League game, because this is what you as a football fan, I think, are really just anticipating, because these are big Champions League nights. Ajax, we've discussed it before, are a really special team. They are a great team, and beating them means a lot, I think. So with all that being said, Matthias, being angry about the red card is one thing, but I'm almost even more angry that good football has been taken away from me, not only from a Dortmund standpoint, just from a neutral perspective almost.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've never shied away from criticizing referees, because I think when they make colossal, game-changing mistakes, as this was, they need to be called out. And Michael Oliver, that was crap. I mean, to be honest, it completely ruined the game. It ruined the momentum. Dortmund were, for 40 minutes, which obviously is then 10 minutes longer than after the Mats Hummels sending off, were the better side. They produced way more goal-scoring opportunities and shots. Jude Bellingham undeniably should have scored with that header on an open goal.
Hazard probably should have already scored.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that Dortmund should have been up at least a goal already by that time, and then who knows what would have happened. Be that as it may, the encouraging sign that I saw from this is Dortmund did not give up. They kept on fighting, even when Ajax equalized, even when Ajax took the lead. There were still Dortmund opportunities there, which is completely different than when they played in Amsterdam and just capitulated for the most part. The XG was much better for Dortmund in this match. For Ajax, it was a little bit lower, a little bit more than Dortmund, just because, as Rose put it, for 60 minutes, Dortmund fought, and then you could just tell Ajax just wore them down. Ajax played in 22 crosses. They just wore them down over time and attrition, and then the goals happen, and all 3 assists came from Antony, who, as Mats Hummels kind of put it, I'm going to paraphrase here a little bit, from a technical standpoint, he has everything. Now he just has to learn to be a good sportsman. Yeah, Antony is an exceptionally gifted footballer, and I'm sure we will see him at a Barcelona or something like that in the future, as tends to happen with Ajax players. But I attribute the sending off of Mats Hummels, I will put it at 50-60% with Michael Oliver and the rest with Antony, because Marco Rose also acknowledged that afterwards, in a foul where, you'd call that a foul, okay? I mean, it broke up the momentum.
Yeah,
but Mats Hummels,
yellow card.
Maybe even. I don't even know, because he barely touched the guy.
Remember
if
when
anything,
when Dahoud got completely shanked against Hoffenheim, it was just like
yes,
or something like that, ridiculous.
Yeah. And the thing is, Antony actually stepped on Hummels, which is the funny part. And then Antony was writhing around on the ground like someone took an axe to his leg, and Hummels didn't even touch him. If anything, Hummels should be the one rolling around on the ground because you got stepped on the knee. And that type of theatrical cheating, and that's what it is. That is dirty shithouse cheating that I fucking hate. And I hate that so much. And the fact, as Marco Rose also put it, what about VAR? How could you not go back and look back at that and go, this isn't really a red card. He barely, if even, touched him. There was no endangering of the player. It was in the middle of the field, so it wasn't a goal scoring, not like last man or anything. It was an absolutely asinine decision that cost Dortmund a chance at 3 points and a player. At least one in Marius Wolf, because his injury is a direct correlation to this situation because they just have to work so much harder, and he was already carrying a knock.
Well, I'm not
and because
go
Dortmund,
so far that to say that he still might have gotten an injury.
Maybe. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think the injury is absolutely a result of this because of how much harder you have to work when you're one man less against a team of the quality of Ajax. I believe absolutely there's a direct correlation between the two. Now, the problem is also not that it's a problem, but Marius Wolf is a very hardworking player, so he always gives everything. So yeah, it may have happened anyway, but this definitely increased the risk exponentially. And then on top of that is, I saw Dortmund are going to appeal the red card against Mats Hummels. Don't know if it's going to be overturned or not. If it's not overturned, they lose him for the extremely important game against Sporting. And so this Michael Oliver may, if it doesn't get overturned, and, he may have cost Dortmund the Champions League. Not the win, but to continue on in the tournament. May have. And that is completely unacceptable. Completely unacceptable. And if you're going to hold players to a standard and all that, you have to hold referees to a standard. And Michael Oliver failed. He was the worst participant in the game. And it is inexcusable.
Yeah, I don't know how long Hummels will be out, whether UEFA will withdraw the ban or whether they will give him 2 just also for the post-game comments, because obviously Dortmund, I think as a whole, were really miffed, and you could see it and hear it on social media and in post-game interviews, where I think Hummels questioned the referee's professionality. I think he said something along the lines that it's hard for him to understand how a professional referee can come up with such a decision. And I think in the same breath, follow up with, I hope he is a professional. And so I do trust Pongo Chichinakandji to handle the situation. But that being said, obviously, these games now are very important. I think Dortmund, if they beat Sporting, they will be qualified. So if they win in Lisbon, but obviously you don't know if you can manage that. Obviously, Sporting just had a couple good results against Besiktas. So yeah, there's that. And overall, it's just annoying. I'm not entirely sure how VAR misses that one too. You can clearly see it's not a red card decision, and this needs to be reviewed by the referee himself, where he can mull over his own decision rather than just the video assistant referees checking and then sort of saying, it's not 100% wrong decision, not that kind of nonsense. And at least a couple of minutes later, he did see the touch on Bellingham in the box. When he went back to the monitor. So, I don't know about you, Matthias, but as long as it's not about an offside decision, I by now usually prefer if referees actually go to the review station themselves and take a look at it. So also we as TV viewers, at least, and I think in the stadium, you should also get the pictures that are on the VAR monitor on the video screens. And obviously, even better if you could also hear the communication between video assistant referees and the referee themselves. So if we could have all of that, that'd be very sweet. I know it's technically doable, but sadly...
they do it in rugby.
Yeah.
They do it in the NFL. I mean, you don't hear the communication in the NFL, but you witness everything that they see. And in rugby, of course, you actually hear the communication. You hear the referee the entire time, even in explaining his calls to the players themselves, which is really interesting because you'd think there'd be way more colorful language used on the rugby pitch, but it's really not. Which that may be a way to clean up some of the language in football too. If everybody knows that everyone's listening all the time, maybe that makes you a little more self-conscious on the way you speak with your fellow humans. But no, I agree. That lack of transparency, and I agree with you, unless offside, because obviously there's a line correlation, there's mathematic equation that kind of comes into that, but anything that has to do with a penalty, a sending off, anything like that, yeah, the referee should, if there's a question, if VAR goes, maybe you should take another look at this, I think that should always be the default reaction somehow. I mean, there are obviously those situations that are just totally clear.
Glass clear.
Glass clear.
Glass clear.
German English there. And that's kind of like, okay, for what do you slow down the game? What do you not? How do you do that or not? And maybe that's where you have to look at a challenge system from coaches. I don't think that's a problem to do that. That would have been one of those situations where Marco Rose would have thrown the red flag, so to speak.
Yeah, but they would have. They did review the whole play, so I don't know how much the challenge would have changed, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would have forced Michael Oliver to go look at it.
Okay,
and that's the thing. If you would ask for a challenge, you have to go and take a look at it. And that's Michael Rose even said. He said, I don't understand in a situation like that, because the review has taken a long time, that the referee himself doesn't go, hey, you know what? Let me take another look at this. But obviously, ego plays into this, and referees are big ego people. That's just nature. They kind of have to be.
I was going to say they must be.
If you're getting yelled at all the time by millionaires, you gotta have, to quote Diego Simeone, you need some cojones. And in that case, maybe he just doesn't think he's fallible. I don't know. But it's frustrating to say the least. I was surprised that they gave the penalty. Not because it was a penalty or wasn't a penalty. It was clearly a penalty because he clipped Bellingham's foot, and that, you could clearly see, stopped him from taking a shot when he could have. And that is a penalty. I'm just surprised it took so long to get there, and then he looked at it for so long. I was like, Dortmund are just going to get completely hosed today. Completely hosed. And that was a little bit of redemption, but not really, because, to play against a team of the quality of Ajax with 10 men for 60 minutes, that's an impossible task.
Yeah, it would have been amazing had Dortmund come away with a point, to be honest. But I just thought as time would go on, they would just turn the screw so many times. At some point, Dortmund would buckle. And obviously, it's annoying that the goals were sort of half-field crosses almost. The first one, I think Meunier just flicked it onto Tadic. It's just unlucky. And the second one is also, you just don't have the personnel anymore to really close down Anthony in that situation. And you don't really, I don't know about you, but at least I'm not really expecting that sort of stuff from Paslak and Ansgar Knopf, to be honest. At this point, I think you just want to, manage the weight a little bit. I think he took Royce off after 76 minutes, and he brought Marlon on, and Paslak obviously had to replace Wolf. What's more to say about this game other than it's a pity, and I still think that Dortmund will qualify. But obviously now the task is a little harder, and you will hope that Ajax, when they play against Sporting, that they will not just play some C squad and don't care about it. But obviously Dortmund do have this game against Sporting now, which will be very important and very finally. To me, I don't know about you, but I think if Dortmund get a draw against Sporting, that already would be good enough if they then beat Besiktas at home. So I think they still have they can still afford some slippage, but nevertheless, it's disappointing just because also after that 4-0 loss in Amsterdam, you would have just really loved to see Dortmund rally back to a draw or win at home, which I think was feasible as well.
Absolutely. One little silver lining, Dan-Axel Zagadou was on the bench for Dortmund.
Right.
So that was nice to see, as was Youssoufa Moukoko. But at the same time, you look at the fact that you also had a bench that had Ansgar Knauf and Tobias Raschel on there. Nothing against them, but, they're second-team players and Stefan Tigges. That's how thin things are for Dortmund right now.
But one final thought. I actually thought that Tigges had a really good game, and he did the job he had to do. Basically, all the runs he was making. I thought he did that well. You obviously grade him on the Stefan Tigges curve, but I think that considering the player he is and what's available to him, I thought he played a fantastic game, because let's face it,
yes.
you play a home game in the Champions League and you are Stefan Tigges, who is, as he said, part of the under 23 squad, usually basically a third or second division player. Probably still have some upside, but nevertheless, these are or can be intimidating moments. So, keeping his head and not being baited in some weird situations. I thought he did all right. So, I'm just happy that we have these little side stories and subplots, if you will, that warm your heart, while obviously that Hummels red card, was ice cold. So, yeah, with that, I think we can now look ahead, because before we play against Sporting, Dortmund will have to deal with Leipzig and then Stuttgart. So it's going to be, quite interesting. I think in between, though, is an international break as well. So maybe hopefully afterwards there can be some players returning from injury. I don't know what the sitch is with Gio Reyna or Mo Dahoud. Maybe we'll hear about that tomorrow at the news conference. I don't know. But in the meantime, Matthias, RB Leipzig, even though they rallied back to a 2-2 draw against PSG, have struggled this season. They are still in the cup, but they are not going to be featuring in a round of 16 of the Champions League. And who knows whether they will be featuring in next year's edition of the Champions League, because right now they're in 8th, and as I previously said, they are 9 points behind Dortmund. So, Jesse Marsch has a lot of problems on his hand. Obviously, they lost Sabitzer, Nagelsmann, and Upamecano, also Bayern Munich, so a bit of turmoil at Rasenball. So, obviously, I think they're, you can't really call it a revenge game, because a cup final loss is nothing you can make up for in the Bundesliga. But nevertheless, since Dortmund have had Leipzig's number for so long, I think they are itching to get something on the board against Dortmund, and they really must, if you look at the point situation. If they lose, they're going to be off by 12 points. So, it's very much what we call in Germany a 6-Punkte-Spiel, a 6-point game between two sort of rivals. That sort of remains to be seen how the rest of Leipzig's season goes. But, I don't want to talk too much, because you are also still here to say stuff. So, Matthias, what can we make of this Leipzig game going into or limping into this match?
Well, I think limping is the right term. They drew 1-1 against I would say now pretty mediocre Eintracht Frankfurt side. That itself is a bit in crisis. To expect Leipzig to continue post Nagelsmann at the same rate. Look at Hoffenheim. They fell off because Nagelsmann left and key players left. Leipzig, Nagelsmann leaves and key players leave, mainly your defense. And then Sörloth is actually having a decent season. He's not scoring a ton of goals for Real Sociedad, but he's having a good season there with a player that Dortmund could really use right now, Alexander Isak. And so who is Jesse Marsch and company looking at to rely on? I mean, they still have Danny Olmo. They started Paulsen in the last match. They've got Silva. I mean, it's still a good side, but it is nowhere near the side that, let's be honest, Edin Terzic owned the last season. I mean, owned RB Leipzig. And that's just freaking amazing because, I hate Leipzig. RB Leipzig. The city's actually kind of nice. But Leipzig are having a rebuilding season. And I think that's what's saving Jesse Marsch's job right now after 10 games. Of course, they've got 15 points. They are 2 points off of Champions League. They need to get much closer to that for him to keep his job because RB Leipzig without Champions League football, I don't think that will be accepted for a season.
No, I think in fact this could be a game for Marsch that if he loses to Dortmund, he might be gone.
I don't know.
It could be an X game. I don't know. I might be.
I
wrong.
don't think.
Now that Van Bommel is on the market, who knows?
One can only hope, right? No, I think the match that could really prove a death nail for Jesse Marsch is actually the week after that when they take on Hoffenheim, who are right next to them in the table.
Can't lose El Plastico.
No. I mean, this even goes beyond El Plastico at this point. Leipzig against Hoffenheim. But the problem for Dortmund, of course, is they're still dealing with an injury crisis. So you'll have a very well-rested Mats Hummels. So at least that. Odds are you're going to have to play Hazard as left wing back and Meunier as right wing back because I'm sorry, Felix Passlack. I like Felix Passlack. I really do. I think he seems like a nice guy. He really works really hard, way too hard at times, because you saw that against Köln. He would just overrun his position time and time again. I mean, he's one of the easiest players to get around. I mean, in his prime, Arjen Robben would have eaten him for lunch because Passlack just blows past the attacker because he's just so eager to get there. And which is fine on the one hand, at least he's willing, but on the other hand, it doesn't really help you if you're then completely out of position and out of shape. So you cannot start him against Leipzig because you will lose. And so you're just asking the same core of players to put in another 90-minute shift.
Yeah, and this game is not exactly going to be a walk in the park either.
No, it's going to be high intensity. It's going to be a lot going on. You can't even in the midfield, in center midfield, you can't take out Bellingham or Witzel because who are you going to play there instead?
Yeah, and Bellingham is already...
Toby Raschel?
Yeah, and Bellingham is already walking or running with some sort of... I don't know what it is around his knee, some sort of sleeve or so. He's already he already has knee problems, and he got a knock. Who knows if he's even going to be available, to be honest. And we've totally forgot to mention so far how amazing he has been, but that's almost a standard right now. So yeah, wish he would be a little bit better at headers toward open nets. But otherwise, I don't really have many gripes, and obviously he will be once again instrumental against Leipzig, but I'm not quite sure, since we're already sort of there hanging on by the skin of our teeth, whether it will be enough against Leipzig as well. Because right now we're Houdining ourselves, if you will, to results, but I'm not entirely sure how this one will go. So, if you look at the starting 11 that they played against PSG, for example, you just said they have Andre Silva, who outscored Erling Haaland last season. You have Emil Forsberg, who is, to me, pretty much a Bundesliga all-star, if you will, and who is maybe not as happy to still be at Leipzig since he wanted to force a move. I think Nkunku is a terrific player, bit wasteful every now and then, but he is explosive, he is quick, he's technically gifted, and he... is a headache for defenders, especially the likes of Mats Hummels. I think he would prefer more of a bulkier opponent. And I think the Konrad Leiner and Tyler Adams midfield, for example, is also a really good combination. I really do rate Tyler Adams, even though against Dortmund in the past he is, I don't know, not played his best. Angelino is a good fullback. We all know that. And Mukiele also on the other side. So the only question marks are maybe behind Guardiol, Simakan, and Willi Orban, who is not getting any younger. And Peter Gulaschi obviously is a really good goalkeeper. Easily making, without thinking about it, my top 4 in the Bundesliga, so this is still a very decent team. And if you have players like Dani Olmo who can come on, who is also a terrific player, talk about rebuild all you want. I just don't think necessarily, looking at the players they have at their disposals these days, it really should be a rebuild. I think they should comfortably be in the top 4 position right now. They should be, well, maybe Freiburg are, or Mainz or Union Berlin or so, and not where Leipzig are. So this comes just down to, I actually don't know what exactly it did come down to. I guess against Frankfurt they were very unlucky. This is a game that they absolutely should have won, and they had massive chances for it. I mean, the XG itself is 2.9 compared to Frankfurt 0.5, and this one got out of hand. They had a 1-1 draw against Freiburg where they dropped points. They had a 1-1 draw against Cologne, where Cologne really played well. I remember watching that game. Obviously, they got shellacked by Bayern, as they always are. That this 1-1 loss in the other El Plastico against Wolfsburg, but they did start strong against Stuttgart, a 4-0 win, where they bounced back from this interesting 1-0 loss against Mainz on the first match day. It's a weird season for Leipzig, but I think they should be doing so much better than they are. And
I think, you hit the nail on the head, Stefan. Is they create the chances, but they are not scoring them. I mean, Andre Silva is a proven goal scorer, but he's kind of off this season. And then once you get beyond him, you've got a lot of wasteful strikers and wasteful attacking players. And Kuku, like you said, I mean, he's wasteful. Yusuf Poulsen has never been a big goal scorer since like the Dritte Liga. And even then, he wasn't a great goal scorer. That wasn't his job. His job was to hold up the ball.
He's the Steffen Tigges of RB Leipzig.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say he's probably a little better than Steffen Tigges, but he would hold up the ball
job description,
so that Timo Werner could make the runs off of him. And in the system they're playing right now, there's nobody to run off of him. And Andre Silva comes in there, and if he would play a single striker with Andre Silva also needs a true striking partner. And I think that's where the problem is. If you have a lot of creative players, it's not unlike Dortmund right now. You've got plenty of creative players in the attacking third, so to speak. But then out and out goal scorers, you have Andre Silva, but he's off. And if you're off, then you've got a problem, and you've got nobody really behind that. And Dortmund are in a similar position. You have plenty of people who can create great scoring opportunities, but then who is it going to be that's actually going to put the ball in the back of the net? And I think there's a disconnect with maybe Jesse Marsch's formation and system, just because there's a lack of consistency. And again, the wastefulness. Now, I don't need them to become highly efficient this coming weekend. That would be horrible timing from Dortmund's position. I think you mark their weakness very clearly. It's defense. How can it not be after you lose an exceptionally good defensive unit? And Willi Orban, of course, is still there, but like you said, he's not getting any younger. The other two, I don't really value. They're definitely a step down from where Leipzig were the last few seasons defensively. Again, you can't really say, well, if Haaland were there, it was a different game. Of course it is, because I think he would dominate. He would dominate that team, their defensive backline. But you don't have that, so what are you going to do? I would hope that Daniel Malen can start. I think you need it, because if you're, if it's going to be Tigges and Reus, I don't know if that's going to work per se. Tigges, again, the nice thing is he's a big body at least that can tie up a defender. But
I'll be honest, I want to see Malen in this position.
Yes.
Because I think you want to run at Leipzig's defense. Now, saying that they did a step down is defensively is probably correct, but at the same time, they've also only conceded 10 goals. So that's tied with Mainz and Bayern for second place behind Freiburg, who have only conceded 7. In comparison, Dortmund have leaked 15 goals so far. So, yeah, but I don't know. It's maybe it's more wishful thinking, but I really just want to see Malen break his Bundesliga duck. And usually Leipzig are a team that offer the kind of space for, especially a player that's strong on the transition that Malen definitely is. I'm just hoping that he can make the correct runs and then just have luck with his finishing. I mean, we did see against Sporting the sort of goals he can score, and he has come close several times in the recent games where he was maybe a step too far away from a cross or so. I just feel like it's time now. It's beyond time, actually. So yeah, now would be a really good day for him to score in the Bundesliga. And you know, it's I also don't really want to be the slump buster for Leipzig, even though Dortmund are not doing really well. And if they would lose this game, which probably will be a very close affair, it's not going to surprise me whatsoever. But still, I'm desperate for another W here. I know it's asking a lot. Dortmund are on a Bundesliga winning streak of 4 games, I think. But oh man, I just desperately want to win and beat Leipzig and sort of kick them further down the well.
And of course, you know, I mean, to take another German translation, they're walking on their gums.
Right.
You know, laufen auf dem Zahnfleisch, Borussia Dortmund, and they're in their last breath right now, and they just don't have the depth right now. So many injuries. I would like to see Renier start. I think you need to give some player a break somewhere. And maybe that player is Julian Brandt to start with, and you put in Renier for him. Or you say, because Torgan Hazard has to move to the left wing-back or full-back position, depending on the formation you throw
Hazard,
up there.
He's not even fully fit, and he has to play full-back now.
I know, but I would rather have him there than Felix Passlack. Yeah. I mean, maybe you throw in Yusufa Moukoko. I don't know how fit he is.
Yeah, maybe they were just bench fillers, because in Champions League you can basically just stack everyone on there. You know, the Rose explained with Zagadou over the international break. They're trying to have a test match with the under-23 so he can get some minutes. So, you know, even though he was theoretically on the bench, it would have still been a surprise had he featured in any way or form.
Yeah, it's just a very, very difficult situation for Borussia Dortmund right now, and it sounds like we're making excuses for our pick, which it seems like we're desperately trying to not give yet. But I mean, it's just bad for Dortmund's situation. I mean, maybe you can throw in Ansgar Knauf if you're going to look at speed in transition. But he definitely doesn't seem to be as favored under Marco Rose as he was under Edin Terzic or Lucien Favre. You know, I mean, I'm looking at the line, the possible players that Dortmund have at their disposal, and it's pretty thin. I mean, there's just not much there. I mean, you've got, I think Koulibaly is back from his injury, but he's 18. He's
never played.
He's never played. You know, what else do you have there? Abdoulaye Kamara, 16-year-old who's never played. Toby Raschel, who's not good enough. Gökhan Göpitz, who is another youth or under 23 player who's never played. You know, we always say Toby Raschel kind of as a joke, but he's not a Bundesliga caliber player. So, I mean, it's like, what you got? There's just nobody left for Dortmund to play in central midfield. So it's going to be Witzel, Bellingham, and Renier or Brandt.
Pretty much.
And then you're gonna throw an attacking trio. However you form that trio, as 2 strikers or 1 behind, depending on the formation. You're gonna have Malen, probably Tigges and Royce, because you don't have anybody else to put up there. Maybe Ansgar Knauf, though doubtful. And then you're gonna put Hazard and Meunier at the fullbacks and hope they can last 90 minutes. Probably can. So you're gonna see Felix Baslak. And maybe they go back 4 and throw in Pongracic as a fullback. I don't know. I mean, Marco Rose has a difficult task right now in managing a squad that's playing every 3-4 days. That's incredibly thin with high expectations. I do not envy him in that regard right now.
Yeah, it's a high-profile game. I haven't checked, but my assumption is it's the later kickoff on the Saturday. I don't know if you can confirm that. So yeah, I'm really miffed that this is the state we're going into this game, and yeah, Leipzig will have to sort of play for their lives really, because if they mess this one up too, they might be really far behind, and I don't know if they can afford to play catch up over the Rückrunde or whatnot. So yeah, we'll see how this game goes. But I do think it's prediction time, and I'm still, even though it's an away game and it's a difficult affair, I'm still believing in Dortmund. I think they will win it 2-1. And one factor of why Dortmund are getting maybe 13 plus points out of the games they didn't so far last season is also Gregor Kobel. I think this is a factor that hasn't been mentioned yet on this episode. But I just want to reiterate that he is a great goalkeeper and that he is saving a lot of points for Dortmund this season. We haven't even talked about the save that sent him against the goalpost again because Pongracic screwed up. And Matthias, I think that's a really good segue, because there's something we wanted to talk about, because I think he was on some Twitch stream and aired some dirty laundry to what Wolfsburg. Now, I only saw the push notification this morning on my phone, and I was really busy so far. We're actually recording later because I've been so busy for once. So I'm not entirely sure what has been going on, and so you have to fill in the blanks and just treat me like a person who has never heard of it, because I sort of don't. Yeah,
it kind of surprised me. I just, it popped up on my phone, and I went, what's this? Marcel Schäfer says, something about Dortmund player and wanting more professionalism. And I'm like, okay. And for those who don't know, Marcel Schäfer is the sporting director at VfL Wolfsburg. Obviously, Marin Pongracic is on loan to Dortmund from Wolfsburg for the season. He does apparently have a €9 million buyout clause, which Marcel Schäfer said, Dortmund can activate it at any time, which is kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But Pongracic went on Twitch on his stream. I don't know if it's his stream or somebody else's stream. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he kind of let it all out about Wolfsburg, saying, that Wolfsburg ruined a move for him, that he wanted to leave, a permanent deal, and Wolfsburg, it didn't happen, that he wanted to, quote unquote, go after Mark van Bommel. He didn't seemingly elaborate why, but I think just obviously it didn't fit. But that doesn't seem to be a Pongracic specific issue with Van Bommel.
No, we all wanted to go after Van Bommel at some point.
Yeah.
We all have been there.
Because it's Mark van Bommel. And obviously Marcel Schäfer had to react to this, because a player that is contracted to VfL Wolfsburg being negative on a public forum such as Twitch about his parent club, he says, listen, basically paraphrasing here, I mean, there are issues that VfL Wolfsburg looked at, and basically there's a reason why they were okay to let him go out on loan. It seems there were attitude issues, and that reflected poorly on Pongracic. Dortmund, of course, took him because they needed a player because of injuries and fixture congestion. And, again, Schäfer saying, he's got a €9 million buyout clause that Dortmund can activate at any time. And the question, and he also urged Pongracic to worry less about what did or didn't happen in the past and focus a little bit more on playing consistently well for Borussia Dortmund in the meantime. And he also alluded to the fact that Dortmund is probably also looking at the stream and how the player acted. And that probably also isn't a positive reflection on Pongracic. And I'll be honest, I agree with Marcel Schäfer. You don't do this. It is immature. It shows a complete lack of professionalism. You don't go on a public forum like Twitch in a stream and bitch about your employer. First of all, you shouldn't go on there anyway if you're a professional footballer, because Twitch is like, it's a live stream version of Twitter. It's just a cesspool of shit. But when it comes to these kind of chatty things, and he aired dirty laundry about the team that is still his employer in VfL Wolfsburg. And this is the kind of stuff that Watzke, Zorc, and company do not like. They don't like this. So if Pongracic thinks that this is his way of maybe getting a move out of Wolfsburg, it's not a way of getting himself a move permanently to Borussia Dortmund, because Dortmund have had the immature, unprofessional player, and it never ends well. And I don't think Dortmund want to have anything to do with that anymore. And as such, I hope he'll learn out of this, because he was in the wrong. He shouldn't have done this. I don't care what Wolfsburg did or didn't do. You don't do this as a professional, whether it's an athlete or someone like you and me, Stefan. You don't go on Twitch and complain about your employer on a public forum and think it'll be okay. You just don't do that. That stuff, and Marcel Schäfer said, this is the kind of stuff you would think you would discuss internally. And he's correct. He's completely correct. Pongracic, I think, was completely out of line. He may not have been wrong in the stuff he said, but he shouldn't have done it on Twitch, in my opinion.
So you're saying it's going to be harder now because of this for us to get a nice player to come on here as our gift for the 400 episode.
Well, we're not Twitch and we can edit.
Right.
That's the thing about a live stream. There's no editing. And it just is what goes out there. And it's about being selective in who you talk to and the questions you ask and so on. But professional athletes, professional players, they won't necessarily do what he did and say basically, I wanted to beat the shit out of my coach. That's not. You don't do that.
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
That's you can think that. It's Mark van Bommel, and I totally understand the urge to want to do that. But you don't publicly say that if you're a professional employed by that club.
Yeah, it's
even if you're saying it after the coach got fired.
Right.
It's poor form.
Yeah. Also, he's still in the midst of his career, and somehow you might still cross paths with Van Bommel. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just awkward and weird. If there's a sliver of a silver lining we can take away from that is maybe that Pongracic feels quite comfortable at Dortmund right now. You said yourself maybe it was a little bit counterproductive, but I feel like a player who was probably heading back to Wolfsburg, or I had the feeling that who he was going to head back to Wolfsburg, probably wouldn't have said all these things. So,
No. And Schäfer said, we'll look at doing something, whatever the hell that means. If that means finding the player, if that means dissolving his contract, I don't know what that exactly means, what repercussions there would be. But no, he's probably not going to play for Wolfsburg again. Whether he plays for Borussia Dortmund after the season, that really depends on how the season goes. It depends on how Dan-Axel Zagadou does coming back, because if he comes back and plays back to his old peak form, well, then no, there's no real room for Pongracic. But the problem is, of course, Zagadou is incredibly injury prone. So it'll just have to be a wait to be seen. And there are a few other young players that Dortmund have from PSG, which PSG is now the Borussia Dortmund Academy. that we'll have to wait and see how they develop.
Yeah, there are a lot of factors in the air, but from my perspective, at least now, I think 9 million might be a steal. So you might just do it one way or another, even if you just can sell him on then later from a business standpoint. But as a sort of slot in player, if you will, as your third, fourth option or so, especially if you want to play with a back five, and you need 3 center backs. Yeah, I'm okay if he sticks around longer and Dortmund sign him permanently. Because everything else is a bit of a question mark. Because of Hummels' health, because of Zagadou's health. You don't know how long Akanji will be in Dortmund. Yeah. Also, I think it's like the end of the world for him now that he said the things he said. Maybe he's just a little bit too honest and naive. I don't know. But I also haven't seen the Twitch stream yet or really read about it. So I have to shape my opinion maybe later today. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, it's not going to define the entirety of Marin Pongracic for me. The interviews otherwise I've seen and heard with him. He seems like a likable guy to me. So for what it's worth, yeah. I think so far he's playing well, but obviously, if he makes more mistakes as he did in the previous 2 Bundesliga games, I don't think Gregor Kobel will survive. So, so we can't have that. So please cut that out. But yeah, Matthias, I think this is a good moment to wrap things up. We have been on the air now for well over an hour. The Leipzig game is obviously terrifying, as it always is, but somehow Dortmund come out on top, so I hope it will be the same this time, and I'm looking forward to the international break, also because I hope it will help to get some players back, which is much needed for the stint afterward, and also we can maybe talk about the transfer window, because of course Dortmund need to do something if they can. I don't know how the financial situation has changed.
Jadon Sancho loan?
Yeah. I don't know why. I actually see some people that are a little bit gleeful about that he has not been called up and that he is sort of, souring on the bench under Solskjaer. But yeah, I don't really have any hard feelings toward that. So I'm just sad for him, to be honest. I just
not at all.
Have a little bit of pity. But other than that, yeah. I do think we need to talk about potential backup strikers maybe and what else to do. I think Sport 1 came out with a piece today saying that Dortmund lacks top quality in their squad depth. I don't know what you make of that statement, but I for 95% would disagree, because I think Dortmund's squad depth is excellent. If you have the amount of injuries Dortmund sustained and you go on a 4-game winning streak in the Bundesliga and have 24 points after 10 match days, I think you have excellent squad depth.
I agree, and I think the 95%, the 5% caveat is probably the striker, or the Haaland backup. I mean, we're technically playing with 2 strikers this season. No, that's total garbage. I mean, if
and maybe the
other teams
that
would
situation,
lose,
that criticism wouldn't even be so worse if Marlon would play better. Which I think is my bad, because when we signed him, I said, oh, he's a little bit older than the usual 17 or so old guys, and he would probably hit the ground running and be a consistent force for Dortmund. So far, I've been wrong. But maybe he needs half a year to adjust. This happens with 23 or 25-year-old players too sometimes. Sometimes it takes time, especially from the Eredivisie.
Aubameyang took a while.
Yeah, so did Lewandowski.
And they both turned out to be semi-decent players.
Yeah.
I mean, Dortmund, let's face it, I mean, they have 6 fullbacks on the books and 1 is healthy. And that's Thomas Meunier, who's questionable how healthy he actually is.
Right.
So, I mean, okay, Paslak is also a fullback. I always forget about him.
Right.
Probably because he's short.
Well, you forgot about Meunier earlier when you talked about fullbacks. You said that Paslak was the only healthy one, so now you're just equalizing.
The other way around. But no, I mean, if you lose so many players, I mean, no team. If Bayern would go through a similar bout of severe injuries, which they have in seasons past, you don't keep 3 deep in each position of high quality players because you can't keep them happy.
Yeah, you can't afford it.
No, that's an absolute garbage piece.
Yeah. Also, for what it's worth, I don't think we have really appreciated it right now, but Dortmund players are fighting hard. They are going out there and they're leaving everything on the field every single game. They don't really have slumps. Even the one in Bielefeld wasn't really like a slump game where anyone really took a break or, wasn't mentally quite checked in. That's something we've criticized in the past, and maybe as a closing word, I just want to praise how well Dortmund are doing this right now, how well the players are fighting, and the next man up mentality, and also maybe it's also credit to the coaching. I don't obviously know from the outside, but there's a team on the field that fights for wins and for each other, and that needs to be commended, and I'm really happy about it because I really enjoy watching this limping football club right now.
I agree completely, and I think that is something that was rebuilt under Edin Terzic, and it carried over because it's not like Dortmund added 20 new players. No. The core of the team is still the same, so that kind of got revitalized under Terzic and that huge run to finish third and win the DFB Pokal. And so I think that carried over because Marco Rose is a similar mentality type person. I mean, he's an ex-Mainz player. He played with and for Klopp, I think. Mm-hmm. And so it follows that mentality of, all right, let's keep fighting. And so, yeah, I agree with you because that was what happened with Ajax. I mean, even after Ajax took the lead, Dortmund kept going. They kept trying to do things and had a few opportunities. So the only match that I was very disappointed in Dortmund was the first match against Ajax, where I just feel like they gave up. And that's not really something we've seen this season, and hopefully we won't see it again.
Yeah, but that to me, to some extent, is even understandable because they were so much outplayed that I think they were just at their wits' end. I don't want to make excuses for them, but I at least can kind of see it how this comes about in such a game. But let's let bygones be bygones and talk again after the Leipzig game to analyze what shithousery, what weird refereeing decision happened that time, and who else got injured. In the meantime, though, Matthias, please tell our at least Twitter users where to follow you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Matthias Zug.
Very well. You can find me at Stefan Butzko on Twitter. You can follow all of us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to subscribe to this podcast, please do that on YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, whatever. And if you want to contribute financially, go to patreon.com/theyellowwall. And that's all from us for this week. And all I have left to say is, as always, thank you for listening and goodbye.